Welcome back to the Pearson Edexcel coursework marking training for GCSE Physical Education Component 3, the Practical Performance. Please make sure that you have marked all practical activity examples in Module 2 before taking part in this module. You should have marked each of the 4 examples and have your marks available so that you can compare them with the standardised marks. The first example is the assessment of the skills in isolation of the amateur boxing activity with a standard mark of 10. The next couple of slides will look at the mark breakdown and explain why the candidate in this activity achieved 10 marks. To recap, when marking the skills in isolation, there are 5 level bands with 2 marks available in each band, which outline the quality of the skills being performed based on technical accuracy, control, precision and fluency in relation to the preparation, execution and recovery of each skill, and which students should be marked against. When deciding how to award marks for the skills in isolation, it is necessary to refer to the guidance as stated at the beginning of the Practical Performance Assessment Criteria, the PAC document, and to consider the following. If a skill meets the requirements fully and consistently, with the performance being as good as can realistically be expected within the level, then the top mark can be awarded. If the skill meets the requirements of the level but barely and/or inconsistently, and the performance is at the weaker end of the level, the bottom mark should be awarded. Here is a reminder of the assessment requirements for the skills in isolation for the boxing activity. Note that all skills must be demonstrated for this section of the assessment in this activity. This was a level 5 performance awarded 10 marks, which meant that the candidate fully and consistently met the requirements of the assessment criteria at a very good level. The candidate is initially observed demonstrating the stance, guard, footwork, attack and defence, and use of punching combinations using the bag. This is followed by him demonstrating similar skills against the pads. The latter allows the candidate to demonstrate a more extensive range of skills and manoeuvres in a more realistic situation, although it is obvious that the candidate is totally focused and in control when punching and moving when using the bag. The candidate is able to perform with a very good level of control, precision, technical accuracy and fluency when moving around the punch bag and against the pads. His stance is technically correct, with his body weight correctly distributed on the balls of his feet, with a slight lean forward to give an advantage in attack as well as defence. The gloves are closed but not clenched. He demonstrates a good reach and his hands are also held at the correct power line. The candidate maintains a relaxed, balanced and fluent position on his feet and demonstrates a change of speed in defence and attack as appropriate. During the demonstration of the attacking moves, the candidate displays his ability to use feints to outthink and deceive the opponent by using a range of powerful combination attacks that are sharp and clean. The candidate keeps an appropriate guard throughout the work on the bag and pads and demonstrates anticipation skills using single punch counters and counterattacks using either hand and at a very good speed and level of intensity. It is judged that using a best fit approach to finding an appropriate mark within a level, that the candidate performed this part of the assessment at a very good level of technical accuracy with accurate precision, control and fluency. The second example is the assessment of the application of skills, techniques and decision-making in the swimming activity. The standard mark for this example is Level 3, 13 marks. The next couple of slides will look at the mark breakdown and explain why the candidate in this activity achieved 13 marks. This slide offers a recap on the marking criteria for the assessment of the application of skills, techniques and decision making. As with the assessment of the skills in isolation, there are 5 level bands, with the difference being that there are 5 marks available in each band. Also, in addition to the assessment of the quality of the performance of the physical skills and attributes, these level bands outline the quality of the performance of several other traits as listed in detail in Module 1. When deciding how to place a mark within a level for the application of skills, techniques and decision-making section of the criteria, marks should be awarded holistically using a best fit approach to decide on the level which most closely describes the quality of the performance. If you remember from Module 1, it was said that performances can display characteristics from more than one level, and where this occurs, markers must use their professional judgment to decide which is the most appropriate and taking into account the level at which all of the other traits have been placed, based on the quality of the performance of these traits. So when deciding how to award marks for the application of skills, it is necessary to refer to the guidance as stated at the beginning of the Practical Performance Assessment Criteria, commonly known as the PAC document, and to consider the following. When awarding marks for the application of skills, techniques and decision-making processes in a formal competitive situation, the full range of marks available in a level should be used. Assessors should start at the middle of the level and move up or down to find the most appropriate mark. Marks should be awarded as follows. For the top of the level, if all requirements are met within the level and the performance will be as good as can realistically be expected within that level. At the bottom of the level, that's if the performance barely meets the requirements of the level and where performances will be the weakest that can be expected within that level. And at the middle of the level, where performances will have a reasonable match to the descriptors, with some of the characteristics of the level being fully met, while others will be barely met. Here is a reminder of the assessment requirements of the application of skills in a competitive formal situation for the swimming activity. You will see by looking at the example of the activity criteria on one page how the best fit mark has been applied to ensure that marking is accurate and consistent. The candidate is observed to be performing a competitive race over 50 metres with a competitor who is of similar ability. The candidate was able to maintain her pace over the distance, which allowed her to succeed against a competent level of performer. The candidate displayed an appropriate level of fitness for her event, although it was evident that there was a lack of intensity, speed, drive and power throughout and towards the end of the race, which prevented the candidate from obtaining marks in any of the higher level mark bands. Throughout the race, the candidate was able to demonstrate a competent level of performance of skills with some precision, control and fluency. She was able to demonstrate a good level of coordination of the arms and legs. Her body position and breathing were coordinated, although the style and efficiency of the action was lacking, with the arm pulls and leg action being less than mechanically sound. The level of technical efficiency and the use of basic strategies enable the candidate to maintain a competent technique through most of the swim, and it is apparent that the candidate is aware of where her competitor is in the lane. Although an appropriate racing start is demonstrated, it lacks speed and efficiency. A legal turn is also shown, although the candidate does not optimise the distance travelled underwater from the push-off at the wall, with the leg kick being too quick and shallow rather than deeper and more powerful. A mark of 13 was awarded for this performance, which is the middle of the mark level. This indicates that the performance had a reasonable match to the descriptor, and it represents the balance between some characteristics of the level being fully met and others that are only barely met. The third example is the dance performance, where a mark should have been awarded for both elements of the assessment criteria. That's the skills in isolation and the application of skills techniques in a formal competitive situation. Looking at the mark for the candidate performing the skills in isolation first, the standard mark for this example is level 5, 10 marks. The next couple of slides will look at the mark breakdown and explain why the candidate in this activity achieved 10 marks. Here is a reminder of the assessment requirements for the skills in isolation for the dance activity. Note that 4 skills must be demonstrated for this section of the assessment. It is important to take into consideration that as assessors of this activity, we are not assessing the choreography, as this is creative in nature and makes dance too distinct from the other activities. For example, we do not ask footballers to submit their strategy for the game. We are concerned with the assessment of the performance. The candidate demonstrated all the skills, but should not be penalised for doing so, as it is the quality of the performance that should be assessed as opposed to the quantity of the skills being shown. For assessment purposes, it would be beneficial for candidates who perform dance to repeat the skills in isolation a few times, so that the consistency of the quality of the performance can be seen, as the skills tend to take place over a very short time span. This was a level 5 performance awarded 10 marks, which meant that the candidate fully and consistently met the requirements of the assessment criteria at a very good level. The technical ability of the candidate was clear to see during the skills section, where it was evident that she had a very good level of posture, placement, alignment, coordination, balance and strength. The contemporary dance style focuses a lot on downward movements that require core strength, which was obvious when the candidate was performing the travelling movements across the floor, which she did with very good rhythm and mobility. The skills of balance and stillness were performed with a very good level of focus and posture from the head position downwards. The head was straight and the fingers were pointed. The skills of rotation and weight transference highlighted the candidate's very good level of coordination and mobility, as well as her ability to work to the beat of the music. The gestures and motives were performed with a very good level of accuracy, precision, control and strength. The top mark in the level has therefore been awarded, as the performance is as good as can realistically be expected within that level. The standard mark for the application of skills, techniques and decision making in the dance activity is level 5, 23 marks. The next couple of slides will look at the mark breakdown and explain why the candidate in this activity achieved 23 marks. Here is a reminder of the assessment requirements for the application of skills in a formal competitive situation for the dance activity, which is, by the way, a routine. The candidate in the example is observed performing a duet with a dance partner who is of similar ability. The dance performance consists of a typical contemporary dance style routine that lasts for approximately 2 minutes and 59 seconds, which meets the assessment requirements for this activity. You will see by looking at this example of the activity criteria over the next 2 slides how the best fit mark has been applied to ensure that marking is accurate and consistent. There was obviously a close link between the candidate's own physical ability and the art of successful expression through the development of the motif and gestures, although there could have been better use of facial expression to convey the emotion of the theme. This was not evident until towards the end of the routine. The movements were performed with a very good level of control throughout, with a variety of multiple and simultaneous skills, most advanced being executed during the routine in relation to posture, placement, alignment and coordination of the arms and legs. The moves were also performed with a very good level of strength, focus and projection. There was wholly accurate execution of all aspects of actions, dynamics and spatial content, showing consistent timing and very good musicality. The candidate performed the routine with excellent confidence and focus throughout the performance. The repetitive rhythmic patterns that were used during the routine demonstrated very good fluency, continuity and logical progression. The motif was developed using a variety of advanced methods, enabling the dance to be performed with very good clarity and interest. The theme was communicated with sensitivity throughout the dance. The choice of music was appropriate to the theme and was sophisticated and mature, complementing the structure and content of the dance and enhancing the overall impact of the choreographic intent. The group relationship was sophisticated, with the candidate demonstrating a very good level of sensitivity to and awareness of her partner throughout the dance. The middle marks of level 5, that's 23, have been awarded for this performance. You will see from the grid that this represents a balance between some characteristics of the level that are fully met and others that are only barely met. The fourth example is the athletics performance, where once again marks should have been awarded for both elements of the assessment criteria. That's the skills in isolation and the application of skills techniques in a formal competitive situation. Looking at the mark for the candidate performing the skills in isolation first, the standard mark for this example is level 5, 10 marks. And the next couple of slides will look at the mark breakdown and explain why the candidate in this activity achieved 10 marks. The activity criteria states that the candidates will be assessed in all the skills listed while performing any one of the track events, also listed as we see here. The candidate's choice of event was the track sprints, and specifically the 300 metres. This was a level 5 performance awarded 10 marks, which meant that the candidate fully and consistently met the requirements of the assessment criteria at a very good level. She begins by demonstrating the leg action, including pawing the ground, high knees and fast knees. All are performed with a very good level of technical accuracy, control, precision and fluency. The candidate is also observed performing with the very good posture, still head, looking up and eyes looking forward, and arm action with arms close to the body and a good upward swinging action. The candidate is then observed performing the sprint starting position, where she uses the crouch start, which, as well as being appropriate to the event, is considered to be a more advanced technique in comparison to a standing start, although without starting blocks, which are not essential to use at GCSE level. This technique can be viewed from different angles. It is clear to see the correct weight distribution of the hands and feet and the high hips. Although positioning is appropriate, her technique is at the top end of good rather than very good, as the candidate's hips are too high to prevent any real drive forwards. The start is developed into a 10 metres and 30 metre sprint, which demonstrates the candidate's very good technical accuracy and control of the arm and leg action. During the performance of this skill, the candidate is observed to have a very good line with relaxed shoulder action, even stride and with a strong drive from the legs. As the candidate is observed running the bend, she shortens her stride as appropriate to maintain pace while still maintaining an effective push off the ground and while hugging the bend. It would have been appropriate to have viewed more footage of the drills showing the skills as listed in the criteria. For example, 3 clips could have focused on the start using the setup and reaction, the drive and the transition. The remaining drills were very well done, although they were very brief. As with the dance activity, further repetition of the skills would have been beneficial to view consistency of the quality of the performance over time. However, there is no doubt in this case that the candidate has a very good level of ability in her chosen event. The standard mark for the application of skills, techniques and decision making in the athletics activity is level 5, 23 marks. The next couple of slides will look at the mark breakdown and explain why the candidate in this activity achieved 23 marks. Here is a reminder of the assessment requirements for the application of skills in a formal competitive situation for the athletics activity. The candidate is observed performing in 3 competitive races. The first race is over 100 metres, which, although not her assessed event, shows her further developing her sprinting technique, ability and skills. This is equivalent to seeing a conditioned or small-sided game in one of the games activities. The candidate is then filmed performing over 2 races over 300 metres at district and county level, which allows the assessor to observe the increasing level of demand of the competition and the candidate's response to the increasing level of competition. It is important to note that in this activity, times, distances and measures are not considered as part of the assessment, other than for informing students as to how they can improve their performance, which would be part of the decision-making trait of the assessment criteria. You will see, by looking at this example of the activity criteria over the next 2 slides, how the best fit mark has been applied to ensure that marking is accurate and consistent. During the first race, it is obvious that the candidate has a very good level of physical ability, including technique and fitness over the distance. The candidate was then observed competing in two 300-metre races, where it was obvious that she was very relaxed, confident in that environment, and she certainly dominated the first two races. The candidate generally displayed a very good level of physical fitness over the running distance, showing an appropriate level of technical accuracy at the start of the race and maintaining very good form throughout until the finish. Her use of pace and judgment in the first two races was very good, although when running against the better competitors in the third race, this was less effective, although the candidate did still maintain a very good running style right up to the finish line. The candidate did display very good and very consistent impact, including the ability to adapt, improvise and deploy appropriate running tactics, particularly over the first two races, where it was evident that she was very comfortable in that environment. The candidate was highly motivated as well as focused throughout her races. She also demonstrated an appropriate level of determination and aggression, which resulted in a consistent and effective performance. 23 marks, which are the middle marks of the level, are used for performances that have a reasonable match to the descriptor. You have now been able to compare your marks with those awarded by the senior examining team. Please make any notes you would like to be addressed before you move on to the next module. In this next module, you will have the chance to have a live interaction with one of our experienced trainers. We will also run through another fresh mark sample together to enable you to further practice the application of the marking criteria supported by the online trainer. Don't forget to contact our subject advisor, Penny Lewis, if you have any further questions about our PE and sport qualifications. Thank you.